Hello, hello. My name is Liku Amadi, founder and attorney of Anasa Law Firm, where I work with consultants and expert service providers to help them establish a solid legal foundation to grow their business. And today we are talking about protection and profit, but more particularly how we turn and take protection and make it so that we have new income streams, new revenue streams, new business growth. Because when we think about our client contracts, when we think about protection, we usually don't think about growth. We just think about being guarded. But we want to think about growth because our protection should be growth oriented. It should be aligned with our protection and it should be aligned with our growth goals. Protection should be aligned with our growth goals. And before I continue, legal disclaimer, I am a licensed attorney. However, this is not legal advice. It is legal information for educational purposes only. If you need legal advice, please consult with an attorney one-on-one. Okay, so let's get started. Let's remember how we're supposed to feel when something protects us, when someone protects us. We feel safe, we feel guarded, we feel like we can let our shoulders down, we feel like we can exhale, right? That's what's supposed to happen when we feel protected. Legal protection is supposed to be that for our businesses, right? We want to make sure our personal assets aren't on the line. We want to make sure that our business doesn't get in trouble. And even if our business does get in trouble, we have some type of course of action, some type of plan to take so that we can recover from that trouble or that trouble doesn't hit our business too much, right? Somebody drop a yes in the chat or in the comments if you agree with me. But legal doesn't always make us feel that way. Legal protection instead makes us feel worried and anxious, particularly when it comes to our client contracts. As service providers, we give our clients a contract to sign that is essentially us laying the law of the land as to how to work with us, what we're going to do together, whose responsibility is what, payment terms, communications, boundaries, etc. That is what we do to lay the foundation for the client relationship, for that business relationship, and more importantly, to protect not only us and our business, but also the clients that we are working with throughout that service delivery and throughout that transformation, right? That is supposed to make us feel good. That is supposed to make us feel secure and safe about our business operations. But we are often concerned about, what if the client doesn't do this? What about these payment terms? I'm not really sure if this protects me in the new way that I need it to now that I have these plans or this idea, right? We are often not feeling secure and safe like we are supposed to when something protects us. We feel worried, we feel anxious, there's a lot of what ifs going on, and it's almost like a gray cloud hanging over our heads. Just we're waiting for it to rain, right? We're waiting for it to rain on us, just worried about what could happen or what could come of some client relationship or some circumstance that you're in with regard to your business. And that is not the way that we want to feel, because the impact of that results in unclear decision making, because you kind of just don't know what to do or how you'll be impacted, or you don't know where your risk areas are, right? You don't know what you should be looking out for. You don't know the things that you should be considering. There's a lot of just lack of clarity there. So of course it shows up in how we market our business. Imagine getting an influx of clients and being excited about it, but then on the back end, afraid or worried about handling all of those clients because you're not sure if your client contract and your legal foundation is actually protecting you the way that you need it to. Right? This causes us to hold back in our decision making or delay decision making, or just move forward with making decisions that aren't based on clear information about where we're protected, because we just don't know. So that gray cloud continues to kind of just hover over our heads, and we're walking forward throughout the day, not having a good time in our business when it comes to that thing that is actually supposed to make us have a great time, because we know that we are protected and secured. A client came to me and said that someone reached out to her about using some of her written work in their academy, right? My client was excited about this. They've actually been using her work for years, but during that time, my client and I started working together on contracts and protection and how to protect yourself while growing and making sure your protection is in alignment with that growth, right? So she was excited about the opportunity because she wanted to know, like, how can I use this, right, to not only make sure I'm protected, but to tie into my growth and where I'm going with my business. She had a lot of questions about, how do I protect me? How do I protect this now with them? How do I make sure it's protected in the future? Should I protect this, right? What should this protection be based on? So there were a lot of questions that we're keeping her from responding to that person and saying, hey, yes, this is how we're going to move forward. This is what we are going to do. Because that person wanted to know, like, hey, can we still use your writings? We feel like it's super valuable in our academy where we're using it, where the students are using it. And she wanted to say yes, but couldn't do so yet because she had all of these questions, which is why she came to me, right? We talked it through, we strategized about it, and ultimately we made a plan for protection. And what happens when you're protected is you start to actually feel better. You can exhale, you can let your shoulders down, you stress a lot less because you don't have all of those what if this happens, what if that happens hanging over your head. You're not worried about areas of exposure because you're actually clear as to what you're being exposed to, right? You see where you have more control, more flexibility, more options start to become available to you. So when you actually are protected, and more importantly, when you understand how you're protected and how that protection can now serve you in what you're trying to do, you are feeling safe, guarded, relaxed, feeling like you can make decisions confidently in moving forward because now we finally have the clarity and that gray cloud is no longer hanging over our heads. Are y'all understanding what I'm saying? Please drop a one in the chat or in the comments if you're watching this later, if that's something that you resonate with, right? We would much rather have that feeling of relaxation and safety and security. And that is actually what you get when you are protected. So with this client in particular, we had to ask more questions, right? What exactly does this academy want to use it for? How long are they going to use it? What does their actual use look like, right? Are we talking about 3 days out of the academy? Or are we talking about 100 days or every day of the academy, right? We wanted to understand more what was actually going to be going on with this piece of her written work that she was allowing them to use, right? So we put together a licensing agreement, asked some questions, and she went from being uninformed and not having the answers to go back to them with to actually being protected, having that information in order to not just have answers, but be ready to negotiate if needed, and being able to command a price that she was not even thinking about at the outset, right? And that results in some money being made. And in here it's profit because it's work that she's already done, it's work that she's already completed. So she's not doing anything additional outside of making sure that there's an agreement in place that she gives them that is subject to her terms, right? Saying, hey, this is how you can use my writing, this is how you can use my works, and this is how long you can use it, right? That ended up in additional income for her. And that's what happens when you go from not being protected to understanding that you're being protected because your perception and how you perceive the things going on in your business changes. It becomes a lot clearer because we've eliminated that gray cloud over your head. And then now you're in the position to negotiate, command a price, or control, right? Have clarity, leverage, all of that to actually be protected and increase your income or create another stream of revenue or have additional opportunities, bigger goals, etc. That is what happens. And when we talk specifically about how we can increase income, because when I say this, people look at me like, how do you use your contracts to, increase your income? Isn't it just supposed to protect you, right? Which is understandable because that's what we believe about contracts and legal, is that their purpose is limited. The purpose is limited to just making sure you're protected, you avoid risk, you don't get in trouble. But with legal strategy, right? That's legal protection. With legal strategy, we want to make sure that it is tied into our business goals, that it aligns with our business goals. So not only are we protected here in what we're doing, but we're protected so that we can continue or start to build on that foundation in order to reach our goals, whether it's collaborations, licensing, hiring team members, right, to delegate work to and expand your operations. We need legal strategies so that our protection is in alignment with those goals. Somebody dropped the word protection in the chat or in the comments if you are picking up what I'm putting down, right? Legal protection versus legal strategy. And when it comes to making that additional money, like I was saying, we want to do it in two buckets, or it usually happens in two buckets. So that's inside the contract terms or outside of the contract terms. And right now we're talking about the client contract because as service providers, that is the most important document in our businesses. Our clients are the relationships that drive revenue, right? They drive our business growth. Without them, we can't have what we're trying to build. So we want to make sure that the foundation of that relationship, which is our client contracts, is something that is actually protecting us. So when we're talking about inside the terms and outside the terms, that's what we are talking about, is the client contract. So first, inside the terms, remember that our client contracts lay the law of the land as to how we are going to work together. It is structure, it's policies, it's boundaries, it is the operation of your client relationship, right? Like I said, it's the foundation. So you want to make sure that this is tight and unlocked the way that you need it to be in order for you to deliver your services and do it in a manner where you can feel relaxed and you can feel protected. And within those terms, depending on how you structure your service delivery, you structure your payments in particular, there is room in order for you to increase your revenue, right? So, what I mean by that is, for example, a lot of people like to implement installment payments, right? That's directly with their company, not with a third party company, directly within their company, but they don't really know how, because what if someone skips out on a payment, or what do I do when this happens, or do I continue to work? And there's just all of these questions. So when I say inside the terms, I mean we need to structure and arrange the terms in a certain way that allows you to make sure you're capturing money that could have otherwise been missed, right? And make sure you're getting paid on time. And also make sure that you are not doing work or additional work without getting paid. So some more specific examples of this are charging for that initial consultation, right? There are some consultants who do preliminary work in order to provide a customized package or a customized proposal as to how they are going to work together. Them and their client are going to work together on a long-term basis, right? Some of my clients have done that for free, but instead that's actually something that you can charge for, especially if you are having preliminary meetings, asking questions, reviewing documents. Like, that is actual work being done in addition to you having a waiting time. One of my clients has a business where she's a consultant, and the waiting time is sometimes unreasonable because the clients that she works with, they have to go up the chain, up the ladder, and there's usually waiting time within their own operations. But she's kind of like, I could be pitching to other clients, or other people could be potentials on my list, but I have to use all of this time to kind of just wait it out. And it's like, no, you don't, right? Like, you can certainly have a compensation for time that you reserve in order to wait for your clients to come back and say, hey, we approve the proposal, right? You can put a deadline on that, so you're not just waiting for weeks or months on end, because your business operations have to continue, right? So that's just one way that you can do it. Another way, I mentioned payment installments. Another way that you can do it is for like any additional time that you provide. We often give, and this is particularly for people who do hourly work, but it also works if you just do like project-based or like flat rate work. It's like we find ourselves giving additional time. And with my clients, I see, hey, can you just hop into this meeting? Or, hey, do you mind being do you mind if we loop you into this conversation because we think it might be about our services or your services that you're providing to us, right? And it very well may be relevant. You very well may see value in sitting in on that extra meeting for an hour or attending this event or whatever it is that you have to do. But it's often additional work outside of the scope. And maybe you don't want to turn it down because you don't want to impact the client relationship, right? But those are things that you can charge for, right? If there's an additional hour of your time needed, make sure it's compensated or update the scope of work accordingly. And it's as easy as letting them know, like in the contract, hey, this is our scope of work, this is the fixed package or the fixed goals that we're going to reach while we're working together, right? And if these other things come up, then it's going to be this additional charge. That way they have notice, that way you have a process in place so there's no awkward conversation about charging extra, or you don't feel bad about giving extra time or showing up in a manner that you didn't agree to without getting paid, right? So these are just some little things that happen but matter and impact your work and your compensation, because sometimes you're leaving money on the table, and in other events you're doing work without getting paid. And we want to make sure that neither of those happen, and your client contract is there to protect you from those circumstances. So that is inside the terms. That is about the structure and arrangement of not just our payment terms, but how we facilitate the client relationship. And then outside the terms, right? This is where legal gets sexy, if you will, where it gets fun, because like I said with my client previously who had the writings that another client wanted to license from her for her academy, she was in a position to leverage what, and she did leverage what she already created. And that's what we mean by like outside of the terms. Like once you have your stuff protected, right, you see how you can use it in other aspects. And for a lot of consultants, that is their signature framework and methods, and making sure it's protected so the exclusive use remains with them and with their team, right? And then now going ahead to other opportunities like speaking and partnerships, collaborations, licensing. There's various things that you can do with something that you have already protected, right? You've already laid the foundation. Now you can build in other ways. Now you can build other avenues of income and business growth based on the legwork that you've already done, not just in putting together your signature frameworks and methods, or maybe some of like your materials, right, that will later result in digital products, but also the legwork of protecting those things, because we have to make sure that they're protected at the foundation so that they can align with our business growth goals. And those goals become there's options within those goals as to how we can grow our business, how efficiently we can do so, how quickly we can do so, because we've done all of the work in protecting and building at the foundation, right? So we have inside the terms and we have outside of the terms, which says that now that I have my protection plan and my protection strategy in place and it aligns with my goals, like these are all of the other things I can do. And so ultimately, you have your protection. And when you understand how you're protected, it increases or expands the perception that you have about your business, how you run it currently, and your business goals, and how you can reach those goals. And that ultimately produces that profit, that increased revenue, that growth that you desire in your business in different ways, right? Ways that you may not even have thought about at the outset or whenever you had that original idea. And these are the things that we're going to be talking about in our masterclass, right? Our legal strategy masterclass for consultants is designed to make sure that they understand legal strategy is for their benefit. So yes, we're protected, but how does that protection look like? What do we need the protection to be so that it is in alignment with our business goals, right? Where we want to go. How can we make it more efficient? How can we make it easier? How can we leverage all of the legwork that we're putting in and building this business and our expertise and our thought leadership, right? Legal strategy is what we're going to be talking about so that you as a consultant can make sure that you have decreased risk with legal protection and increase revenue with legal strategy. Our next masterclass is May 19th at 9 a.m. That is California time. You can register or cast a recording for a limited time, and registration is $99, and you can register at alfmasterclass.com. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a DM here on LinkedIn, and I will see you on the next live.